I started and failed with 3 separate businesses in my first year of business while trying to create a company that actually made some dang money. But it wasn't until I finally understood the concept that I'm going to be talking about in this video that I was able to break out of that, create my first of now multiple successful businesses, and it's called the emotional cycle of change. So I'm going to be breaking down the emotional cycle of change for you guys so that you can maybe put into words more what you're experiencing in business, potentially as a new entrepreneur, so that you can not just feel the things, but understand them and realize what that next step is to get rid of whatever it is you're going through and be able to break through and actually create change and success in your business. So let's jump into it. Okay, so the emotional cycle. What is it and why should you care? Well, what it is something that every single entrepreneur goes through at least once, really, many times, especially and more consistently when you're getting started in business. So I'm going to draw it out. I'll try and make it nice and big here so that we can really break this thing down. All right, so we're going graph mode here. I'm going to pull it up. So over here, we're going to call this your emotional stage. And then down here, we'll call this time. Now, the reason that this is so important to understand is because I went through this 3 times before I learned this concept and was actually able to, again, understand what I was experiencing, why I was experiencing it, and actually be able to visualize. That's what we're doing here. We're visualizing what you're going through so that you can break through that and get to the next step. Whether you're wholesaling, lending, buying houses, flipping houses, whatever the heck it is you're doing, I'm assuming you're trying to make some money, and this will help you. So hang out. We're going to be going through 5 stages of the curve. So right here in the middle of this curve, this is going to be the difference between optimism. This is probably going to be too small to read, but I'm going to write it anyway, and pessimism. Pessimism. So optimism's on the top, pessimism's on the bottom. Now, the first stage, we're going to start up here. All right, we're going to look something like that. So here we are at the top. We're in stage 1. And stage 1 is uninformed optimism. Top of the ladder. Now, what the heck does it look like to be in stage 1? Well, I bet I can figure it out for you guys the same way that I did for me, because it's where everybody starts, and it's a great stage to be in. Let's break it down. Uninformed. What does that mean? It means you lack information. And because you lack information, what emotion are you feeling? Optimism. You're feeling like this is great. Now, let me break it down for wholesaling, because that is something I've been through this cycle on multiple times, and it's very clear, and I think a lot of people understand wholesale whether they've tried it or not. So stage 1 of the emotion cycle, uninformed optimism. This is when you see ads running. This is when you see people posting about making $100,000 for only 2 hours of work, whether it's real or not. That is what triggers stage 1. And stage 1 is where you see it and you say, if somebody else can do it, so can I. I'm feeling just over the moon. Holy crap, this is my thing. I found it, right? Wholesaling. This is going to be my thing. I'm going to make $100,000 a month. This is crazy. And then the worst part is that oftentimes your fire might even get fueled a little bit, right? You get that first deal. It came out of nowhere. You didn't even do that much. You make 50 grand. You're like, 2 of these a month and I'm already at 100 grand. This is crazy, right? Sky high. Nothing can go wrong. The world is your oyster. Uninformed optimism. We freaking love stage 1. Everybody goes through stage 1. It's fantastic. All right. So all of you are either here right now or have been through here, because every single person goes through this stage. Now, let's jump to stage 2. Slightly less fun. We'll put this right here, I guess. Stage 2. Now you can see, sadly, we have gone down below the midline right here. So stage 2 is going to be informed pessimism. Now, what's popping on stage 2, and how do we get here? Well, informed pessimism is when you learn the information that you did not already originally have, because what are you now? Informed. So, informed pessimism. Again, I'm going to stick with the wholesale example. It's easy. A lot of people will get it. Uninformed optimism is like, all you have to do to wholesale is call a few people, you get a contract, you become rich, you move to an island. Fantastic. Okay? Stage 2 is informed pessimism. This is where you learn some things, right? You get to informed pessimism and you're like, okay, well, I just learned that even though all the gurus on the ads told me that it was the easiest thing ever and I would become rich overnight, it turns out you actually have to work really freaking hard to be successful, right? You are now informed. You've met other people in the space that are doing what you're doing. You have experienced for yourself some of the difficulties that you may not have originally expected. And now, because of the information that you've received, you've gone from optimistic up here to pessimistic down here. You are now less excited about the thing that you're doing. You're a little bit questioning it. You're like, so this wholesale thing, I thought it was fantastic. Turns out it may not be the best thing ever, right? That's informed pessimism. Now, you can see following the curve that we are in a downward trajectory, which nobody wants to be in. But to be fair, you will likely be in at some point, right? Now, after stage 2, we get down here to the bottom of the trough. This is stage 3. And stage 3 is the valley of despair. How sad is that? The valley of despair. This is where you feel like the world is against you. This is when that first wholesale deal falls through, or you lose your earnest money on a deal, right? You lose money. Things are not going the way you wanted. You're spending way more time than you expected to spend, and you're like, this is never gonna work. This is not for me. This sucks. I hate it. This is not what people told me it was. All those gurus were lying. Holy crap, shocker, right? And you're in the valley of despair. You're like, just recently, I was up here at the top of the mountain. I thought we could do anything. I thought I was going to become rich overnight. It was amazing. And now, just a short time later, I have reached the valley of despair. Now, this is where we bring in one of my favorite quotes that I've heard a lot this year, which is that there's no such thing as competition. And the reason there's no such thing as competition is because 99% of people quit the moment something gets hard. Guess what that equates to? The valley of despair. That's when things are getting hard. You're not enjoying yourself anymore. This is not the hunky-dory thing that you thought it might be. You're at the bottom of the barrel. Now, obviously, when you visualize it and you look at the curve, you can see what happens right after the valley of despair. We start to go up, right? But you can't see that curve when you're in the moment, or hopefully you're watching this video and you see that curve now and you're like, that's where I'm at. I'm at the valley of despair. By the way, this is literally the emotion curve that every single entrepreneur goes through. All of them, at some point. Multiple times, more realistically. So, we're down here at the bottom, stage 3, valley of despair. Now, you have 2 choices when you get to the valley of despair. Because if you're not at it now, sadly, you've either been in it or you'll get to it again. I've been in it now at least like 5 times, probably. We go through these cycles a lot. I might be crazy, who knows. But we're in the valley of despair. So, you've got 2 choices. From this bottom point right here, you can go over here, and right here, guess what starts? Stage 1. You start again with a new thing. This path right here is the path of the 99. So when you get to the valley of despair, things don't feel like they're working out. It's not what you expected it to be. We have 2 choices, and 99% of people take the choice where they go from here and they jump over to stage 1 with a new thing, right? If you were wholesaling, that might be fix and flipping, or buying rentals, or starting your own business, or going back to your job, or whatever the heck it might be. But that is when you jump over. The 99% of people jump over. Why? Because this is an immediate transition from the lowest low point back to stage 1, uninformed optimism. You're on an all-time high. This is the thing, right? That other thing was stupid. That wasn't going to work, but this thing, this is the one, right? This is the one that's going to get me to where I want to be. This is the one that's going to make me rich. It's an easy transition. You can go from valley of despair here to this new high of uninformed optimism in one day, just like that. Boom, you're there. It's perfect. It's amazing. Who wouldn't want to do that, right? Well, 99% of people would, which is why there's no such thing as competition, because nobody is able to weather these storms and get back to the upward trajectory, right? There's no such thing as competition because nobody is willing to do that work. Nobody is willing to endure the pressure, the pain, the uncomfortability that is breaking past stage 3 in the valley of despair. Now, here's the tough part. The valley of despair could last for a week, could last for a month, could last for a year. Now, there are certainly tactics that you can do to try and shrink that crap down. That's for sure. But there is no defined amount of time for these things. On my journey, I would say most often it's like a couple months at each stage. But I will say I definitely work extra hard to try and get out of the valley of despair as quickly as possible because nobody wants to be on that low forever. That's not fun. And it's not helpful either. So try to avoid it. But here we are at the valley of despair. We're making this decision for ourselves on what's going to be my next move, right? Am I going to weather this storm or am I going to keep going to the new thing like everybody does? Now, 99% of people, when things get tough, they switch to the next thing and they try a new thing and they repeat that cycle forever. And then they say things like, entrepreneurship sucks, business will never work, I will never make it, the world is against me, everybody else can succeed, but I cannot because I'm a special snowflake. Whatever they want to say, that's what the 99% of people are saying. But let's focus over here on the 1%. Because they're the cool people, and they're who you guys should be, and they're who I want you to be, so I'm going to talk more about it. So, following this cycle, we start with uninformed optimism. We have no information except for the ads we've seen and the paychecks we've seen, and we're convinced something's going to be amazing. Then we actually get informed. We get some information, and we quickly drop down right here, and we go into the valley of despair. And if you are 1% that decides to stick it out, then now you're informed, right? Once you're informed on something, you can't really take that back, right? So you've become informed, which means the second that you break this line, then what do you become when you're going back up? You become in stage 4. And stage 4 is informed. Informed optimism. Now this is a great place to be. So again, you go and running with the wholesale example. You start with the wholesale, you're like, I'm going to become rich overnight. The gurus promised me it's going to be amazing. Then you learn some things. You meet some people in the space. You realize that not everything's going to go according to plan. And you're like, this is not what I thought it was. The world is against me. You get to the bottom. You're like, should I quit? Everybody's telling me I should quit. I'm not sure if this will work. But you are the 1% that decide to go back up and you get to informed optimism. What does it feel like? How do you know if you're in the stage of informed optimism? Well, first of all, it's the stage right after this where you're really miserable. But the feeling is, okay, this sucks, but I'm not a special snowflake. And if other people can do it, so can I. And even if it's going to be harder than I expected it to be, I'm willing to put in the work, the time, the energy, the pain that it's going to take to climb back up this ladder and get to the point where I am successful, just like the people that I've talked about, the people that I've heard. Now, side note, caveat to that is keep in mind, the people that you see that are successful a lot of times are lying. They're lying, they're inflating their numbers, they're elevating themselves probably for financial gain of some part because they can't make enough money on their other stuff on their own. Shocker, I know. So keep that in mind. But stage 4, you've broken out, you get to the informed optimism, you realize that this crap is difficult, but so is everything in life, and I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to be optimistic. Now, if you make it to stage 4, again, there is no necessary timeline for this, but stage 5, shockingly, as you can see on the diagram, is the best one, and this is, let's see, we'll call it success and fulfillment. Now this is a very subjective thing, obviously. What is success? What is fulfillment? That's really up to you. But this is not a stage that a lot of people get to experience, because only the 1% actually push through. But when you get here, it's when all of those things that you thought were possible, and then you decided weren't possible, and then you thought for sure weren't possible, but then you pressed on back towards, it's when those things start to come to fruition. It might even just be the little things stacking on top of each other, small wins, meeting the right people, hitting those dollar goals. Your business is scaling, you're making friends in the space. Whatever it may be for you, this stage 5 success and fulfillment is what I want everybody to get to. And it just takes a little bit of time and effort. And when I say a little bit, it could be weeks, could be months. Most likely it'll be years. I can tell you for me, I went through this cycle 3 times, and I very vividly remember not necessarily each of the stages, but very vividly, I remember the valley of despair, right? The valley of despair is where it just feels like the whole world is against you and you've made the wrong decision, and the people who told you you shouldn't get into entrepreneurship were right, and you should have just stuck with your job in the first place, and this was a terrible idea, and you're gonna have to tell your family that you're a failure. I've been through that stage. I can think of at least 4 or 5 times, sometimes much worse than others. And I'm telling you, when I learned this for the first time and was able to visualize what I was experiencing, I went from just feeling like the world was against me to just realizing I was just on a spot on a map. That's all it was. I was just on a space, a place on the map, and the next spot on the map was a really good one. And I just had to keep going. I just had to go up the map. But the thing was, I had to stick with what I was doing, right? I couldn't just jump to the new thing. Now, this is a topic that I cover in my other video, which you can see somewhere up here, push versus pivot, where you can make that decision on whether or not you should jump to the new thing. Because if you're watching this video, I'm not saying that everybody should go from stage 3 to stage 4. There may not be a stage 3 to stage 4 if you're in a situation where you need to determine a push versus a pivot. So if you haven't watched that video, go watch that video. It's very important to make sure you understand that stuff. But once you get past that and we get up here, that is when you finally have that breakthrough. You can start helping other people do the same thing. You realize that what you were hoping for is in fact possible. And if you understand the emotion curve, then hopefully that will help you as much as it's helped to me. So let me know if this was helpful to you. I know it was incredibly helpful in my business, and I know that each one of you can identify what stage you're at in your business. In fact, if you want, comment down below what stage you're feeling like you're in your business right now, so we can work together, build you up, and get you to the next stage, whatever it is. Shout out to you guys, appreciate you watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.